wonderful friends, it's Justin Michael. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome, of course, if this is your first time stopping by. I appreciate it. This is going to be a first for me. I've never done a hashtag, so spoiler alert, this is a hashtag. Yeah, I think, I'll be on YouTube for a year next month, and I've never done a hashtag, not that I can remember. If I did, I apologize, but I don't remember doing one. So, and it's October, Halloween is coming up, and most of us in the tarot community are into the paranormal and Halloween and spooky things and things like that. I mean, just look at our decks, and so most of us are definitely into that type of thing. So I thought, after watching a few lives and some videos, and seeing sort of some of these topics being, hit on, because it is in the air, it's October, I thought, I would do a hashtag that was a little spooky, and that it was entertaining in one sense, but also tapped into like those things that sort of inspired us to go into tarot in the first place. Like, I know I can speak only for myself, but when I was younger, I had a series of experiences that made me look at things a little differently, or had me gravitate more towards tarot because of those experiences. So I think I tried to compile some questions to tap into that, to maybe get you guys to talk about your experiences. So my first question is, do you have a spiritually inspired view of the tarot? And yes, I do. I do have a spiritually inspired view of the tarot. It's not religious. It's not a part of a religious custom. I don't pray when I do it, but divination is definitely, it's divining. It's communicating with the divine, and it's one of the oldest practices in human history. But I'd be curious to know about your religious practices if you have any. But for me, I don't have any. I view us sort of all connected, and I think that there's an underlying intelligence in the universe, whether it's consciousness or something really, really powerful, and that is responsible for the synchronicities and meaningful things that happen, that give us signs, that make divination possible. So the second question is, why does tarot work for you? And so for me, I like Vincent Petisci's explanation of conceptual blending. I think that is something that is really helpful in certain situations, and on a day-to-day basis, that's mostly while it works. But sometimes you sit down for a tarot reading, and I've given some readings, I've done some readings for myself where the cards are just really powerful, and they just light up, and they speak to you very powerfully, and they can be very accurate, and tell you exactly what you need to hear, and it's not, I don't think it can be predictive in a way, like, I think it can be predictive, but I don't think it generally is. At least not for me, it isn't. But, I do think that it taps into sort of the overall energy of things. It potentially can. In the same way that something happens and it's meant, you feel that it's meant to have happened. Like, if something bad happens, you're like, oh, well, it was meant to be. That implies that you believe in some sort of underlying intelligence behind that. And even people who claim to be atheists will say something like that. Like, oh, it was meant to be. Well, if you believe it was meant to be, then you believe in some sort of force or something, whether it's fate, or time, or consciousness, or whatever. But, I think also an interesting thing, I'm reading a book now called Tarot for Magical Times by Rachel Pollack, of course, and Johannes Fiebig, I think it is, or Fiebig. And she talks a bit about 9/11, and she says, in the weeks and months leading up to 9/11, tarot readers all over the world reported having the tarot card come up in every reading. And it's interesting because in one sense, you're reading for someone, and the tarot card comes up, and that means something for them. But the fact that all of these tarot cards were appearing around 9/11 suggests to me that sometimes our cards tap into a deeper sort of more general kind of field of energy that can predict. I think that that's what ultimately tarot is about. It's tapping into that energy, right? But it makes you wonder if the cards that you pull out are for the person you're reading or just what the tarot wants you to know at that time. And I could be wrong about anything. I'm not 100% sure about all this, of course, but it's something I do. But I have had several powerful experiences in my life that have sort of changed the way I think, and that's why I do tarot. So what is the most profound experience you've ever had with tarot? So for me, I think the most profound experience I ever had was I went to go see a tarot reader called Maury, and she was an older Irish woman. She read cards at a local pub, and she was probably the best tarot reader I've ever come across, and she was definitely psychic. And I don't like the term psychic, but I do use it only because she called herself a psychic, and what other word is there anyway? But I'm uncomfortable with it a little bit, but she would tell you your partner's first initial and their sign, and she didn't know us. And she got everybody right that I know. She said your partner is S and he's a Leo, and then she told me all this bunch of stuff, and she told me my ex's first initial, and it was just really, really strange, and everything she said was spot on. And she did the same thing to my partner, and she told him that he'd be finding a new job. At the time, he didn't work in an office. He wasn't planning on working in an office. She said, you're going to be getting an office job in the next few months, and everything happened the way she said. It was really crazy. So that was about 10 years ago, and it sent me down this, no, maybe it was 5 years ago. Sorry. Big difference, right? Maybe like 5 or 7 years. But, she was just really, really good. And, everything she said just was very accurate. And that sent me down this rabbit hole, with tarot back then. It was, I of course had a deck already, and I was into tarot. Actually, the only deck I had at the time was the Celtic Tarot, the older Celtic Pip deck. Sometime I'll show you, but this of course sent me down this rabbit hole and researching everything, how she could possibly do that. And I didn't really know about spreads and things like that, but knowing what I know now, there's no way she could have done it using the cards. I mean, she could have, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't know anybody who does. But she was really good at it. So yeah, I think that is the most profound, and that led me to research tarot more and got me to where I am now. So the next question is, what is the most powerful experience you had with intuition? And it could be personal, it could be psychic you visited. So I have two stories. The first one is when I was in my early 20s. I went to Washington, D.C. I used to play softball there in a tournament every year. And, I must have been maybe 22. And I was in this bar, and I was with this other person who I was sort of with and met there. And they went to the bathroom, and I'm standing there waiting to leave this bar to go to another. And this older gentleman comes approaching me. And he started just telling me stuff, and it was very strange. He was sort of reminded me of the older guy on the Ten of Pentacles. He had a white beard and white hair, and every time I see the Ten of Pentacles, I actually think of him. But he basically just said, you're going to rescue a little girl. He flat out said it. And I was like, huh? And he's like, yeah, I'm a psychic, and I'm telling you, you're going to rescue a little girl. I see you standing there on the edge of the water with your shirt off holding a little girl. You're going to rescue her. And my exact words to him were, funny, you don't look crazy. And he started laughing. He was like, well, he was like, you can believe me or not believe me, but, I'm telling you, I'm a psychic. So I started asking him questions, and he was like, I don't know anything about the past. He was like, I can only see the future. And and then he started telling me other things. He said, you're going to be successful, but it's going to take you a really long time to get there. You're going to become successful when you're older. And so for years, well, the kid I was with came out of the bar, and he was like, come on, let's go, and I was in the middle of my conversation with this gentleman, and I have no idea who he was or where he came from, but it was in Washington, D.C., which is funny because he could have been a part of like Project Foresight or something. I have no idea. And I thought about him for years, 10 years, until a few years ago, we invited our friends Jen and Steve down and their little girl down the shore. And we're on the beach, and I'm swimming in the water, and Steve comes to the edge of the water with Anna, his little girl. And he comes in the water, and he's getting hit with the waves. So he's like, I got to go out a little further because I keep getting hit with the waves. And the water was really powerful that week. It was really, really knocking people everywhere. So he came out to me, and I was like, Steve, I don't know why you're out so far with her. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. She's fine. I got her in my arms. And he started getting hit with waves like crazy out there. So we went out a little further. I was like, and then I remembered what this guy said to me all those years ago. And I'm thinking, here I am in the water with a little girl. And, I hope this isn't it. So I was a nervous wreck. But I thought to myself, well, he told me I'd be holding the little girl, and so right now, I'm not holding, that's basically what I thought of, was I remembered what he said. He said I'd be holding the little girl. And so I was like, oh, I hope I don't have to go after her or something. So I finally convinced Steve. I was like, look, man, you got to get her in. And he turned around, he started laughing, and he handed her to me. And he put her right in my arms, and she clutched me so hard. And that goes to show you how much my friend trusted me in that moment. And I was like, I'm bringing her in, and I brought her in. And at that moment, as soon as she hit me in my arms, I thought, well, this is it. This is what he was talking about. And it was like, I would have never brought her in had that psychic all those years ago not said that to me in a random bar, just came up to me and told me this 10 years before that I would be rescuing a little girl. And and I had this really strong feeling to get her out of the water. So, and I'm, like I said, I would never done it if he didn't say anything. So that impacted my behavior in that moment. So that was the most powerful, I think, as far as intuition is concerned. The other one that was with me, and I've been very sensitive my whole life. I've had, and this is another reason why I'm sort of interested in the paranormal and into tarot. But I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I'm an empath, or I'm this or I'm that. I don't put any labels on it. But I can tell you this: since I was a kid, I had these strong feelings that I felt like something was going to happen. And it happened. Or I would be with my mom somewhere, in the strangest of places, out of state, on vacation. I'd be with my mom, and I would think, I'm going to see this person from my high school. I would just think it in my head, and boom, I would see the person there. That's a synchronicity, by the way, but that's also intuition, because I'm feeling that person's going to be there. You know what I mean? I've had it happen to me several times where I'm walking around a corner. I think of somebody, I walk around a corner, and there they are. And I'm like, why? What the hell just happened? It's very strange, and I can't really explain it. So a few weeks ago, we were driving back from a bookstore that we go to in Delaware. And, I have this weird old kind of habit that I got from my dad, which is whenever I have a bad thought, I do this or something. So I'm driving, because I always drive. Steven never drives. And we're driving in Delaware, and I got this flash of a car wreck in my head. And it was just so strange. It was as soon as I got it, I went like this. And Steven saw me, and he was like, "What was that about?" And like, not even a half a minute later, the cars in front of us hit each other. They clipped each other. But I had slowed down and like kind of got control of the vehicle. But I had this flash of an accident, and boom, it happened. I felt it. I felt it coming. And that's the only way I can explain it. So, you know, like, I don't consider myself a psychic, but I am very, very sensitive. And even with people, like, I always, even as a kid, I knew what people were up to before the adults did. Like if somebody was going to steal something or do something bad, like, I just knew. I watched those people, and I just knew. Like, I was very intuitive even as a child. And it's the Pisces in me, for sure. I'm a Pisces sun and moon. So yeah, that's that. So that was very, very strange. And Steven witnessed it because he saw me bless myself, and it happened. I told him, you know, I mean, it was really, really strange. My next question is, what is the most powerful paranormal experience of your life? So what is the most powerful thing that ever happened paranormally? We had just gotten our cat, Gaga. She was our first animal together, me and Steven. And I adopted her from a PetSmart. She was in a window. We had her for years. She was an older cat, and she was a funny cat. But we didn't have any other animals. It was just Gaga back then. And when we first moved in here, this house was built in the 1880s, I think, or 1870s, like right after the Civil War. It's an old farmhouse, and it's on the historic register around here. And when we first moved in, we had a series of weird experiences in here. We were younger. We were both younger. Steven has sleep paralysis, so he would see figures standing over him all the time. But he has this thing where he's asleep, but he can't move. Kind of thing. They call it sleep paralysis. So he would see like an old time figure standing over him, and he would see things. But that wasn't even weird. That was the weird thing. Our cat used to run in the bedroom. She would push the door open. You would hear, and she would jump up on the bed 2 seconds later because it was her pushing the door open. Well, one night about 2 a.m. I think it actually was 3 a.m. It was almost like exactly 3 a.m., which is, they call the bewitching hour, right? And that's how I remember. But we were laying in bed, and we hear the door pushed open, but the cat was already laying on the bed. And the friggin' cat looked, and if she could turn white, she would have. She was a black cat, but she was petrified, my cat, and she crawled up in between us. The three of us were trembling. It was so bizarre. There were no windows open. I've investigated it the whole time, and there was no possible way that door could have opened up. It was weird. And I got up out of bed, and the whole apartment smelled like sulfur, like rotten eggs. And it was insane. It was crazy. So, you know, and there's no explanation for it. I mean, but like I said, Steven had those experiences of people standing over him and things like that, but we had something around, and then I took certain steps and put certain things around, and did some cleansing on my own, and we hadn't had any experiences since then. Our neighbors have even had experiences, but not like that. That was real. But we were in the house by ourselves back then. Like, we were the only ones in the building because the building was being sold. We just moved in, and we knew the building was being sold, but we moved in with the understanding that the new owners were going to let us still rent from them, you know. So we were the only ones. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting and crazy, and that was probably the I mean, I've seen figures and things like that, but I've never had anything happen like that. Not again. And I'd be curious to hear your stories as well. So, see, have you ever seen a UFO? I have not seen a UFO. I have seen a UFO in like unidentified flying objects, but I haven't seen like anything where I thought they were aliens. Not exactly. But about 3 years ago, there was sort of an orange orb phenomenon around Philly. And I saw them, and I have a feeling it was either military or some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, but someone said it was like the sun, like sun. I don't know if that's even possible, but something from the sun, some kind of like solar storm. But I looked up, and it was this time of year actually, and I was getting into my truck, and I looked up, and I saw an orange orb float across the sky like a bubble. It morphed and all. It was so weird. And then another one directly behind that, and another one, and I actually have it on video. And there was a little boy there, and I turned around to him. He was playing on the street, and I said, "Do you see that?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a UFO." And I was just like, "Yeah, I think you're right." The kid's like, and the kid just didn't care. He just like went back to playing. He was young, but I sat there and watched this thing bounce around the sky, and well, it didn't bounce around, but it morphed across the sky in a straight line. And I researched it for a while after that, and I was definitely into UFOs for quite a while after that. But I came to the conclusion that they were either like flares, military flares, or like this was when when Trump was, threatening to blow North Korea to smithereens, and I think it may have been like an anti-missile defense system that was being tested or something. So, like, there's definitely an explanation for it, but I don't really know what it was. So, and then last but not least, because this is a tarot channel and we all love decks, what decks are you using for the month of October? So I figured I'd throw that in there real quick. So very quickly, my very favorite deck probably of all time is the Mythical Creatures Tarot by Baba Studios. This is a deck I love. It's beautiful. So this one I thought I would use. And this is like probably some of the nicest cardstock I've ever seen in my entire life. The backs are beautiful. And on the fronts you have like mythical creatures, because hence the name Mythical Creatures. This happens to be the full. It's the Amadon, which is a Gaelic term for, it's Fae folk. He's part of the Fae. In old Irish lore, Celtic, actually probably Celtic. If you saw the Amadon, you went insane. I think it literally means like the mad one or something, like, or the dull one or something like that. But an Amadon was someone who can literally drive you insane. You couldn't escape, like, after seeing him. And so that was pretty interesting that they used him. And they're just all beautiful images. They're so beautiful. And I can't wait to get the Fantastic Menagerie, which is going to be shipped out soon. I actually just spoke to Baba because I added on a guidebook, and they hadn't shipped yet because there was a card misprinted in the Fantastic Menagerie, but they will be shipped out by next month, so I'm excited for that. And another deck I really like, and this was $8 at the Halloween store. It's insane. Like, I bought a few of them and gifted them to people that I like. And this is by an artist, Samarame, who is her name is Vera Putrick, and she's created this deck. She also has the Samarame deck, but this is all in a likewise manner, mythical creatures. And she uses a different kind of astrology. The card stock is like not the greatest, but it's good for $8. I mean, it's better than some decks I've seen for way more. But it's all very interesting. And so I've pulled this out too. I actually just bought this. I've been eyeing this up for quite some time because I do have her. This is actually the real name for this deck is the Fantasy World Tarot. And I have her Samarame deck. Well, now I have both, but I'm glad I got it. She's like a legit tarot artist. She just licenses her images to people. And actually, even Taroko Studio, which is I believe in Ukraine or somewhere in Russia, they have one of her decks on their site. So, and then the last is the Fantastical Creatures Tarot by Lisa Hunt, whom I love. Love Lisa Hunt. This is one of the older versions of this deck. I want to say it's from the early 2000s, 2007. Well, that's when the deck was published, but I think this is like from that era because I bought these pre-owned, and I was glad I did. And these are same thing, all kind of cool creatures in mythology, and it's in that Lisa Hunt style, which I love. I love Lisa Hunt. I love her art. I need to find a Fairy Tale Tarot for an affordable price. I should have got the Spanish one when I could. I could have bought that thing. I still can, but you know. So that's it, guys. That's my little hashtag, and you don't have to show your cards in depth like that. But I appreciate you tuning in, guys, and you know, hope you're staying well. And I guess we'll talk soon. Love and peace.